Welcome to the Caregiver Relief Podcast, where we shine a light on the hidden struggles of navigating durable medical equipment, insurance battles, and long-term care. I'm your host, Diane Carbo, RN, with years of hands-on experience helping families just like yours avoid the pitfalls that can turn caregiving into a nightmare. Today, we're tackling a crisis that's hitting families harder than ever before. The rising tide of durable medical equipment denials, skyrocketing out-of-pocket costs, and the dangers of unregulated online purchases. Recent data shows Medicare Advantage plans denied over 3 million prior authorization requests in 2023 alone. With appeals on the rise and fraud schemes billing seniors for thousands in phantom supplies like catheters, we're seeing complaints flood insurance hotlines and social media from Medicare, Medicaid, bare bones gear causing harm to Medicare Advantage programs rationing therapies with high copays. And don't get me started on online buys, scams, repair headaches, and no assessments leading to ill-fitting equipment that's more harm than help. Joining me today is Tara Slaughter, a certified durable medical equipment specialist with over 30 years in healthcare. She's a regular contributor and the founder of CFS Medical Supplies and Equipment and CFS Solutions DBS. Tara's seen it all, from insurance red tape burying doctors in bureaucracy to families scavenging thrift stores for subpar gear. She's also the host of the Medical Equipment World and Healthcare Get the Scoop podcast, advocating for patient dignity and smarter care planning. This episode is sponsored by myvitalvault.net, your all-in-one life organizer for aging adults and caregivers. It's designed to help you securely store your essential legal, medical, and emergency information in one easy-to-access place. Because when a crisis hits, being prepared can make all the difference. Join our Caregiver Relief community, a warm, welcoming space where you can connect with other caregivers, ask questions, share stories, and find support from people who truly understand. Visit community.caregiverrelief.com to join now, because caregiving is one of the hardest and most meaningful things you'll ever do, and no one should have to do it alone. And if this episode speaks to you, please take a moment to like, share, or comment. Every click helps us reach more caregivers who need encouragement, resources, and hope. Tara, thanks so much for being with me here today. Let's empower our listeners to fight back and get the right DMA.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Diane. Hi, and hello, listeners out there. I am happy to be back again, Diane. This is I love having this discussion because I just feel like we always just need to share resources and information to try to help people on
Absolutely.
this caregiving journey to take care of their loved ones in every step of the way. And so that's why we do what we do.
Yes. Now, I want our listeners to know why this topic matters at this time.
Right now, we're in a place where competitive bidding is lurking again. And what that means is that you'll have some providers who may provide you products and services right now that may not be able to once the competitive bid kicks in. And so I don't know exactly when that will happen, but it is a conversation right now. And it's something that you, as a consumer or a patient, may want to try to look into to see how it's going to affect your services and your products. And so that's one of the things. And then, of course, with our daily experience, I call boots on the ground, the experience we witness every day with families just trying to take care of their loved ones, and the delays in authorization or deferred on all these things that we see when you're trying to get something authorized for a patient. And so a lot of times I often say that a lot of times it's not even so much, sometimes it's of denials too, but sometimes it's just basically documentation also.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we struggle with often when it comes to trying to help families and patients get what they need through insurance.
Tara, I've worked on both sides of the fence. I was a nurse who did catastrophic care management and geriatric care management. And I was one of the nurses that approved length of stay every few days, get an
Mhm.
update. But I was also the one that had to approve the durable medical equipment.
Yeah.
And I was limited to what I could do because the companies didn't want to provide more. And
Yeah.
that's really tough. So I want to talk about the realities families are facing right now with this dilemma.
The thing of it is, Diane, a lot of this documentation, and of course, there's products too, because I'll give you an example. So if a patient is in need of a wheelchair, I
Mhm.
just throw this example there. If you're in need of a wheelchair and you've had a walker less than 5 years, the provider may not provide the wheelchair to you now because it'll flag as a same and similar product. And yeah, so it'll flag as the same and similar product. And now that doesn't mean that the insurance won't pay for it, but it is documentation that has to be very detailed. The doctor has to be very detailed into why the patient now needs the wheelchair, as they had received a walker prior, maybe 5 years less than what they need to. And so when that happens, there's a lot of documentation that has to be provided. The us being a provider, we have to have that documentation listed and detailed properly for compliance. So when we get audited from CMS, then it doesn't look like we just provided a wheelchair now when the patient had that and we're billing for it. So in the event that Medicare does pay for the wheelchair and they go back and they audit and the documentation wasn't detailed, they have up to 7 years to recoup what they call recoup the money
Mm,
from the provider. And a lot of times families don't know that. They wouldn't know that. But as a provider, sometimes sometimes I hear families say they just said, no, it's not approved. A lot in the back end, there's all of that red tape and those things that go into it. So I
yeah,
feel like when families know what we deal with and what's
yeah.
consistent of everything, then they'll have a better understanding. And then also too, I try to share with families that when you get an order for an example for a walker, depending on what's going on with your loved one, you wanna have a conversation with the provider you're gonna be working with to say, "Hey, I have this order for the walker, I understand, but what if my loved one or myself need a wheelchair within 5 years from now? Do you think Medicare will cover it? Do you think the insurance will cover it?" And allow them to be able to share with you what the answer may be, and then you yourself reach out to your insurance company and say, "I know my loved one needs this walker. I'm afraid that maybe in a couple of months or maybe a year, we may need a wheelchair, and will you guys cover it?" And if if they can't give you that answer, I would advise sometimes that you might wanna just pay for that walker as it maybe maybe $100 because
Mhm.
a wheelchair is more expensive. And so what would you rather do? Would you rather get the walker out of pocket right now and try to save the benefits you do have for that wheelchair in case you need it down the line? And
Mhm.
unfortunately, those conversations are families don't know that.
Yeah.
And because people don't go into detail to tell them and explain them to that. And I think knowledge is power. And so that's one of the things I see the bottleneck of why people a lot of times don't get authorization. So when you were working on that end there, Diane, that is a lot of reason why you can't get the certain products that you probably were wanting for your clients, your residents.
Yeah, and I will tell you, the strangulating government regulations, all the hoops you have to go through to get them. The hospitals, the doctors, they have had to hire extra staff just
Yeah.
to focus on this. And it's
Mhm.
going through, people don't understand that it's going through charts and finding specific information and getting,
Yeah.
if a doctor misses one diagnosis or the
Mhm.
coder, the medical coder codes something wrong,
Yeah.
it screws up the whole system.
Yeah.
And now I have a question for you that some listeners might be asking right now.
Mhm.
What if you get a wheelchair first and you can advance to a walker?
Well, that
How does
again,
that work?
yeah, that's a good question, Diane. So it kinda goes hand in hand because now you had a walker, you had a wheelchair, and now you need a walker, right?
Mhm,
So it's like things have changed. So the doctor has to now be very detailed to the change, right? Why is the patient going from a wheelchair now to a walker? So it's not that they won't pay for it sometimes, but the documentation has to be clearly specified. It has to meet medical necessity and it has to be outlined as such. So basically, you can't So in other words, a lot of times, and this is what we see all the time, we'll get a prescription and to say a wheelchair or a walker. And the medical reports, when we receive the medical reports from the doctor, it'll say sometimes it don't say anything about the wheelchair or the walker.
Yep.
So
Yep.
we have to send the documentation back and say, "I'm sorry, but can you please explain, make sure the medical necessity is there for why you're prescribing this." A prescription by itself does not is not medical necessity. It doesn't make it medical
Correct.
necessary to give, right? Not
Yep.
saying you don't qualify for it, but you have to have that documentation there. So in that aspect, that's what happens. That's the delay, right? So now what happens if we bill for you now to get a walker? It could possibly be denied. And then that means if it's denied, you're going to get the bill. So you want to be aware of those things. You want to be able to ask your insurance company, be transparent with your insurance. Hey, I got this. Now I'm needing a walker. My loved one needs a walker now. I know you guys pay for this wheelchair. Am I going to be able to get it? And then those things. And so that's where I can't say, I'm not going to say they won't cover it, but it could be very challenging. And some providers just won't do it. They're like, oh, once we run that and it comes up in the
Yep.
system is same and similar,
Yep.
some providers just won't touch it because unfortunately the reimbursement isn't there either.
Yeah.
To really for people to really try to go the extra mile, to try to get it covered.
Yeah. What's frustrating that I'm seeing out here from my point of view is the doctors don't always have the information in front of them of why they need this wheelchair or whatever. They rely on the physical therapist, the occupational therapist to
Mhm.
say this is what we need and why we need it. And now they're actually rationing PT so people aren't getting the therapies that they need to actually have an assessment. And that's why I want to talk about this critical gap that families are facing, the clinical assessment. We're not getting that information from the therapist because of rationing of care or the, with the change in Medicare right now, we're seeing a lot of unsafe discharges to home
Mhm.
because the facilities get a higher level of reimbursement for not providing care. So the 30-day, 20-day mark for Medicare, that's the highest level of reimbursement. They're sending people home and saying they're ready and independent and safe, and it's not always that way. And with Medicare Advantage, they're sending them home between 11 and 14 days.
Mhm.
Medicare Advantage, they might give you, oh, the PT, oh, we'll give you 6 visits over 6 months. And we need more than that. So I want to talk about the critical gap families are facing, and that's a lack of a clinical assessment and how that's so important.
Wow. Yeah, Dan, that's a great conversation right there because I see so much of that. And one of the things when you talk about clinical assessments, you talk about PTs and OTs, yeah, sometimes the patients, because even I'll ask them, I'm like, have you seen a PT or OT? And they're like, no, things like that. And so a lot of them have not. And what we do is we try to do our own clinical assessments and side of why they need the product, what's going to make a difference in the product that they're going to be getting. And a clinical assessment is so critical because what it does is it breaks down the diagnoses, tells us what stage we have a conversation on what stage you're at. If you have Parkinson's or something like that, then we want to know what level you're at because that's how we better determine what
Yes.
you're going to be getting or what you're going to be needing. So we take all that information all that information that we gather and then we work with our team to try and figure out what would be the best product for you based on not in the moment that you're at right now, but the progression, right?
Yeah.
So when you've been in this industry for quite some time, you kind of know we all want to heal. We want everyone to heal, but we also understand that there is a chance that in 6 months, maybe what I recommended and what we see right now may not work for you down the line. And so when we see those type of things and we understand that, we'll make a different recommendation. So you're not
Yeah.
going to get that online. You're not going to get that if you deal
Nope.
with companies that don't specialize in doing clinical assessments and they're just selling you a product. So
Yeah.
that's the difference. And when we talk about the clinical assessment, and I'll just give you a story. I had a client actually this week, and they were in need of a particular positioning chair. And what based on the diagnosis what they had, I recommended a particular physician chair, and the family was like, "Oh my gosh, you're recommending a it's the same brand, but it was 2 different types." So when I
Mhm.
went out and I did the clinical assessment at the facility, which they were in an assisted living, but I saw that the training for some of the caregivers were not there. The training, not their fault.
Yeah.
'Cause a lot of facilities, the caregivers, they do the best that they can, but a lot of them do not have medical equipment training. They're
You
limited.
Tara, I just want my listeners to know assisted living is based on a social model, not a medical model. And the people there are not medically trained in any way, fashion, or any way at all. So they need somebody from home care or somebody like you to come in to do those assessments. And if necessary, which I find really upsetting, is to have to train their staff on a piece of equipment.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we see so much of, Diane, when we go
Mm,
in facilities, and even going into facilities and even people who come into our office. When they come in with a patient and their family, sometimes the caregivers are with them. And they
yes.
don't know anything about the product. They don't know how to transfer the patient properly from one product to the other, for an example, from a wheelchair to a bed, and the
Mhm.
proper way. And when I say the proper way, I'm talking about in a way that it keeps them from being injured too, the
Yeah.
caregiver. So I'm
Well,
like, hey, yeah. So we find ourselves, we train staff, caregivers on how to transfer properly, what products would be ideal for them to keep them from having these shoulder injuries, which is the top thing at the top of the list of injuries if it's not your lower back. And so because of the lifting. And so that's one of the things with the clinical assessment piece is so critical. And talking about the decision and how it makes a difference is because anyone can sell you a product. Anyone can tell you what the specs do. Like you can go online and see what the specs of the product does. But ideally, you want to know if it's going to work for your loved one. And the only way you would know that is if it was a PT or OT, a clinical certified DME specialist, or a TP that evaluated the situation to understand what that need would be. And so I made him make a recommendation that was a little bit less cost effective. It was less than what a different type of chair. And the
uh-huh.
family was like, why are you recommending? Is it something going on with the other chair? Why you recommend the cheaper one and not the most expensive one? I said, they said, was it quality? No, because it comes from the same brand. They're the same brand, but the difference in the chairs pretty much do the same thing. The difference is that when I did the assessment, it was based on really the caregiver. The chairs are going to do the same. The chairs are advanced. The chairs are going to do what they're going to do. But if you have a caregiver who is not, and I know that caregiver turnover is high, I would
Yes.
be doing you a disservice to recommend something I knew that needs a clinical training for this particular product. Even though I could train you, but if you get
Mhm.
another caregiver in a month or two, they might not know how to operate the particular chair. And if they don't know how to operate it properly, then that's going to be a disservice to your loved one. They're not going to get the fullness of the money you're spending, which is thousands of dollars for this
Yeah.
particular product. And so they were like, oh my God, yeah. So I told them why I was concerned based on the different features of the two different chairs. And even though, and so basically it goes back to I'm not just trying to sell you anything. So I
Right.
recommended a cheaper one, even though, but it was based on the fact that it was going to be an easier product to maneuver for any caregiver versus one, because let's just be honest, some of these chairs, if you don't have the training, it's not going to be effective for the patient or you as a caregiver
Absolutely.
because you don't know how to use it. So
Now,
if the
talking
patient,
about the oh, go I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh no, I was going to say now if they were in like a particular skill type of facility where it comes to we call like more clinical, where
Uh-huh.
patients like you got nurses there, like some of those are trained nurses,
Yeah.
trained PTs and clinics that kind of they already use some of these products so they know how to use them, then it
Yeah.
would have been different. But because it wasn't that type of a setup, I recommended something different because of that, along with assessment of the patient too. But a lot of it was the whole surrounding, everything.
Now you're talking I wanted my listeners to pay attention to this next topic because there is a silent epidemic out there. It's caregiver injury that nobody's talking about, and it's because they have the wrong type of durable medical equipment. Could you address that?
Yes. So I'll go to a particular product. So let's use a hospital bed.
Okay.
So we have the regular hospital beds, and I know a lot of times families say, "Oh yeah, the high low, the high low." Okay, they're all pretty much high low,
Yeah.
but you have some where the head goes up, the feet goes up. Some of them by crank. right?
Yep.
I hope those are disappearing and not out there any longer. But then you have the ones that they, of course, the head goes up, the feet goes up, and then the frame goes up and down. Now, those are the ones what we call semi-electric hospital beds, and those are the ones the insurance normally pays for. Now, if you have the particular type of diagnoses or some extensive things going on, they may pay for a full electric. But either one, whether it's a semi-electric or full electric, it only goes so high up
Yes.
the ground,
Yeah.
and it only goes so low to the ground. That's what
Mhm.
they pay for. Okay. Now, when a patient is having to be repositioned or a patient needs to be moved and you have to get them up and move them a certain way, you as a caregiver, a lot of the injuries come because you're bending over because the
Yeah.
bed only goes so high.
Yes.
And so depending on your height, depending on what you're doing with the patient, that's where a lot of the injuries come from. And then all of a sudden you're picking and you're lifting. So now you're lifting. So now you're hurting your arm and you're hurting your back because the beds are just not high enough for you to do what you need to do with the patient.
Yep.
We like to say long-term care beds because long-term care beds is very good because they go very high and they go
Mhm.
very low
Yeah.
and with the remote control, not cranking it.
Right.
Okay. And so that's one of the things I see that harms a lot of caregivers is because of not having the right product, and that being a bed for starts. Now, mind you, the insurance is paying for a semi-electric, the frame does go up, but when we're talking about just how high is the bed, right? It's
Mhm.
not high enough. It goes high, but it's not high enough sometimes when patients are bent over. And I know this because we see families and caregivers all the time. Oh my God, my back. I'm just like, I can't do this. Like just bending over is just so much and you're lifting them and the bed is not high enough. So you're trying to bend over and pull up and all these things. So when you have what's called long-term care beds that goes very high off the ground, those beds are very conducive to what you're going to be doing. Now, if you don't have all those things going on, then you won't need anything like that. But if it's a long-term care, a long you're taking care of a loved one and this is what you're doing, you might want to look into what's called a long-term care bed because
Mhm.
unfortunately those are not covered by insurance.
Yeah.
They're not covered by insurance, so they are out of pocket. And that's the thing when we talk about products and what's out there, they have all these different lift transfer lifts outside of Hoyer lifts because a lot of times Hoyer lifts can be dangerous. A lot of patients don't like to get in them. And
Yep.
sometimes it takes two people, especially if you don't have a real trained caregiver to use
Yep.
a Hoyer lift. It can be very detrimental to the caregiver as well as the patient. But
Yep.
they do have transfers out there that, of course, the insurance don't cover those.
Mm.
It's very helpful. So if you take a combination of a proper bed, a proper transfer, you have
Mhm.
literally eliminated over 50% of your injury because now you're not bending over so much. It's going to help your back, even with your lifting. And now with that transfer, now you don't have to worry about transferring them. The machine is going to transfer them because all you do is push it up to the bed, put them. Of course, it depends on what's going on with the patient too. You got it. That's why a clinical assessment is needed because that transfer may be conducive for some patients, maybe not.
Mm.
So you have a clinical assessment. You're going to make sure you get the proper bed. You're going to make sure you get the proper transfer device. Right now, you
Mhm.
got two devices that's doing your job. Literally. So now you're not having to do all that. And I have families that's have been a game changer for them. They're like, oh my gosh, they
Yes.
can't believe it. And it's so crazy too, Diane, because a lot of caregivers, like some of the therapists some of the families I have, when the
Uh-huh.
therapists come out to the home and they see that what the patients have now, they're like, what in the world? Where did you get this from?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and they're loving it because they're like, oh my God. And it's so funny too, because we in the facilities too. I tell you this, some of the facilities too, the families they'll purchase these high level beds, right?
Mhm.
And the caregivers that's in these facilities are like, oh my God, I want to take care of Mrs. Jones.
You know what? I
Will my
understand.
patient get that bed? You know,
Yeah.
so funny
Yep.
stuff like that. But that's
I
really,
understand that. Nurses have bad backs, bad hips,
yeah.
shoulders. You
Mhm.
really go to a chronic pain doctor because, like I said, I picked up men for a living but I
Mhm,
literally did. And we had, at least I did orthopedics, we had trapeze so that
mhm,
a person could help themselves. But many of
mhm.
the elderly aren't able to use those.
Exactly.
So they can't help themselves. And then you have the caregiver having to use a draw sheet to try to pull them up
Mm,
in bed when they work their way down, or to
mm.
turn them over to give them skin care and reposition them. So a good, proper bed makes an incredible difference.
It does, Diane. Oh my gosh. It has been life changing for families. Let me tell you. You would think like the whole world has changed. A simple, I want to say a simple bed because they're not cheap, but a bed has made so much difference. All that sliding down, no
Yeah.
more of that sliding down. Yeah, it's a game changer. It really, I tell you what, there's a reason why in ICUs and some of the acute facilities, what do they use most all the time? They use long-term care beds. There's a
Yep.
reason
Yep.
they do that because they know what they're dealing with. So if you have a loved one at home and they may be at home, but they may be receiving the same type of treatment and services as if someone was in an acute or a hospital or a long-term care rehab type of place, right? And if
Hmm.
that's the case, then you need to prepare. It's good to have that type of equipment. I know you can't have specifically what they have, but there's things out there that's similar to it that can do the same job that will make life so much easy on you, and you just don't know the smiles on people's faces. They're like, "Oh my god, Tara, what in the world? What have this been all my life?"
And
Yeah.
I get that, because that would be my response. I've been a concierge nurse, I've done home care, I've done a lot of
Mhm.
different things. And I have to tell you, when I go in and I see the long-term care bed, I'm in heaven,
Yeah.
because I'm, I, I know that life is going to be easier in
Yeah.
patient in that bed versus having to, because a lot of times you have to have somebody else come and help you lift and tug.
Yeah.
And that's what the problem with many family
Mhm,
caregivers. They
mhm.
may be the only, and especially spouses, they don't have someone to help them. And
Yeah.
it's so sad, because they're ruining their bodies, and
Mm,
they don't want to try to address their own health issues because they don't want to leave their loved one. And so that bed to me it's priceless to me, when if it'll save my body for the future. And it's too
yeah.
late for me, because we didn't have those kinds of heavy duty beds 50 years ago. We had the old crank ones, and it was over
Yeah.
time that we got the
Uh-huh.
heavy duty. I started out with a brand new hospital in Memphis, Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
and it was orthopedic, so they had premium beds.
Mhm.
And then when I left there and went to other places, because we were transferred a lot, I was like, "Oh my god, I didn't realize how lucky we had it."
Yeah.
Having a nice bed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I really get
It's
it.
it makes a difference, and you're so interesting too, because if you get an experienced, well diverse caregiver too,
Yeah.
they will tell you. I've had a client where we went and we did an assessment, and the first thing she says, "Which one are you bringing here? I hope it's not that brown one. I hope you're bringing that white bed." I was like, "You know what?" And I said, "All I can do is give the options to the family.
Yeah.
I can't guarantee." She says, "I don't work at any ho," and she was like a private caregiver, so she's used to working in these, as you call, posh.
Yeah, the posh
She
facilities,
It was just,
absolutely.
yes, she was just that, and so I was like, "Oh my god." I was like, "Okay, you know what?" I said, "Then you would have to talk to the family to make sure because they're the ones who'll be paying for this. So
Yeah.
I can't all I can do is make recommendations, but ultimately they're the ones who make the decision." And she says, "I need to let them know because in other words, I won't be here if they're bringing in that bed that with the crank and the that doesn't go high enough." As when she said the white bed, she's talking about that long-term care high low, the real high low, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I said, "Oh my gosh, yeah," but yeah, she was on it. I thought that was
Well,
so funny.
now we talk about that, but yeah, I want people to know, my listeners to know, that the low bed goes down low. And if you have a family member that's a fall risk,
Yes.
it's so nice to have it low so that if they fall out or they get out or they escape from their bed, that they're not going to get a broken bone or have a head injury because they're so close to the ground.
Yes,
And
we
that's a plus as well.
it is that let me tell you, that is another game changer because we've had facilities that have had patients, they'll call us and say, "Hey, Tara, we need a low bed." And we'll, of
Yep.
course, do the clinical assessment, make sure everything's we're good to go. And then we recommend the one that goes very low to the ground. And now, mind you, in some assisted livings, they don't allow rails
Yep.
for safety reasons, and so they confinement, as they say. And but we do recommend a floor mat. So even though the bed
Yep.
goes very low to the ground, they still add a floor mat, but it still makes a difference. I had one customer, she told me, she said she had her mom in one place and they kept calling her like every day, just about, "Oh, your mom's falling, your mom's falling, your mom's falling." And she was like, "This is crazy." So she put her mom in a different facility, and that facility, of course, is more, I would say, more in tune to
Yeah.
resolving and solving a problem for their resident, right? And so they called us in to do the evaluation, and we got a low bed for the family. This lady has not got a phone call. Yeah, because
It
now
makes
her
the
mom,
difference.
yeah,
Yeah.
the bed is low enough now, she's not getting phone calls, and it's eliminated the everyday calling. And so that's another thing, facilities, if you're out there, assisted livings or whomever, if you have families out there and you're calling them constantly, you need to be reaching out to companies to find out what's out there that can help you solve the problem. Reason why we started what's called CFS Solutions,
Mhm.
we started that because it is ideal to be helping people to find out what the solution is.
Yes.
And yeah, that is
And
definitely
you provide a level of customer service bar none. You really I'm very impressed, and I know that that is something that we lack all over the country. There's no longer customer service. Tara, let's talk about the emotional toll on families that this takes. You've been talking about so many of your clients. It's a roller coaster ride, isn't it, for them?
it is. I'll share with you. Oh, I got so many stories. Like I have another client and I felt so bad for her because she called and she wasn't a customer at the time, but when she called me, she's like, "I got to find something for my husband. I bought this particular bed for him that she thought that was gonna work for him. She
Mhm.
didn't know. It was one of those, it was a rotation bed, but it wasn't the type of rotation beds that we provide. It was more of a lifestyle type of rotation bed. And
Can you
unfortunately,
explain what that is? To me, when I hear rotation bed, I'm thinking of a circle, a bed in a circle where we put the patient and we put them between 2 they're like a sandwich and we turn them over. So, like, you push a button and they're the circle bed. So, I'd love to learn more about this rotation bed.
yes, the rotation bed, what it does, it's an awesome thing. It's almost like a regular high-low long-term care bed and a lift chair combined.
Oh.
Yes, it's amazing. It's on our website, but what happens is that you have a patient and it turns the patient. So just an example, if the patient is trying to get out or exiting or entering the bed rotates them and puts in what's called a chair position.
Mhm.
Now the patient is able to sit there, or if you have a transfer, or you can transfer them from their wheelchair into the bed. It's like a chair they're sitting in. So you're going to transfer them that. And then with the remote control, it turns them and put them in the bed position like they're going to go to bed and go to sleep. It elevates like a reclining chair. It does a little bit of everything. It's amazing.
Well, now I feel old because 'cause I've never seen one.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh, Diane, I'm gonna have to. Oh my god, I have to show you. But so
Oh my
basically,
god, yeah, I've never seen one, but that sounds
mm,
fascinating to me.
it's a game changer for a caregiver. Let me tell you, it's a game changer, and it's very comfortable for the patient. But the thing of it is that it's like anything else. There's options out there. I don't say a lot of options, but there are some products out there. They are rotation beds, but they are not conducive to the clinical need of the patient. I'm not gonna say that they're not good, but if you don't have anything going on with you, then it could be ideal for you. It's probably a little bit cheaper and it's probably just more of a lifestyle turning bed that you may just need some assistance getting up in the morning or something like that. Whatever that is, but it's not clinical. It doesn't serve for a clinical. So there's different kinds. So you have other ones that serves as a clinical type of rotation bed. So basically, she ordered the one that wasn't considered clinical. And she thought she was doing the right thing. And she was so down on herself. And I told her, like, you don't know what you don't know. You did a great job. You did what you thought you was doing for your husband. You didn't know. No one told no one when she called that company and she got it online. They just sold your product. They didn't ask you anything about, "Oh, what is your husband going what's going on with your husband?" They don't know that because they are just salespeople giving you specs of a product. They don't do clinical. They don't do that. It's not what
Exactly.
they do. And so I said, "You didn't do anything wrong." And so she was down on herself and she said her kids was on her because like now that bed wasn't cheap either. So now she needed something that was going to help her caregiver and all that. And it's a lot of family dynamics that go into something like that. You spend a
Yeah.
lot of money here. So now, in order to her to get what she truly needs, now she's doing the clinical assessment. But she was so devastated, and her husband was so devastated behind the other bed that the proper rotation bed that would have been wonderful for them, they didn't even wanna look at it. You know what I'm saying? They already had, in their mind, these things are horrible, but
Yeah.
it wasn't the right one. And but that's fine though, because we have options. And so we end up going with the something totally different, which is gonna be such a blessing for them as well, for the caregiver. So they came in and we did the full clinical assessment and they tried the different ones. And so the one that she's gonna get, but the sad part about that is that now they have to spend more money.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have to spend more money because had the clinical assessment been done, we would have made sure she got the proper bed,
Yep.
the proper rotation bed, or and again, if you have a even though the rotation beds are amazing, they're not for everybody. But you only know that if you have a clinical assessment done.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Tara, families, caregivers are expected to do treatments and make decisions that were once done by healthcare professionals.
Yeah.
And it's really sad and it's frustrating for them. And they don't know what they don't know. And
Yeah.
even when I was a care manager, I would call different durable medical equipment companies, and I always wanted to work with anybody who was willing to work with me and teach me
Yeah.
while I'm trying to support a client, so I knew what kind of product to refer for the family to pay or for the insurance to pay for. It just depended on what side of the fence I was on,
Mhm.
and that's really important. And you brought up another point. Families are increasingly turning to online platforms out of desperation or after repeated denials or delays. Let's address that.
For one, I can understand sometimes if you've been denied so many times and you've called the provider, the supplier, and no one's really trying to help you, and you are like, "What am I gonna do? Let me just go online and get something." And then you have some doctors out there too that I don't know what their relationships are with some suppliers, but they'll tell the family, "Oh, just go online and get something," or "Here's a prescription, just go online and get that walker or that product," what have you. So we see that, and unfortunately, what do you say to that? Because if a person is just if they're getting the runaround or no one's trying to help them, they probably are gonna go online.
Yeah.
And so the unfortunate part is that how can that you can't tell them they're wrong for doing that. I've tried to get help. No one's trying to help me. And if you call a provider and they're not nice or they're not trying to give you extra help, then what are you going to do is going to go online and try to figure it out for yourself. But unfortunately, the online thing is costly. Now, when I say online, I'm speaking about reputable companies because we sell online too, but we do clinical assessments. We push doing a clinical assessment with the family before you purchase. Even though you can go online and purchase products, we push clinical assessment first because even if you order it, you're going to get a phone call. You know what I'm saying? Depending on what
It's
now,
not like the Amazon effect where you just push a
yeah,
button, say, "Buy now," or put in the cart to buy with after many other things. So,
yeah, we
yeah,
push
that
it.
makes a huge
Yeah, it makes a
difference.
huge difference. It really does. And so what we try to do is we try to push education. We try to push like this call we're on now with you and putting information on. We can actually have an app now. And on our app, the app is it's a free app. You download it, you can get it on Apple or Google. It's CFS Medical Supplies is which type in, you download it on your phone, and we do interviews like this here. You can actually listen read the blogs, listen to the podcast from the app. But one of the great part of that also too, you can chat. You can send a message too. if you have a question about something, right?
Yeah.
And but some of the information we talk about on these podcasts and on these blogs, it's just right at your almost at your fingertips, right? And then we also have the CFS solution side, and that's the consulting side for families who want to get it right the first time. So we have tiers. So we have it if you want a virtual tier, a virtual consultation, there is a small fee for it, but what happens is that every dime is applied to the purchase if you decide to purchase.
Oh, I
If
like that.
if you don't purchase, then you have all the information you need to
Yeah.
try to make a sound decision,
Right.
right? And but we have things out there. We also have a membership on the app. There's a small membership fee per month, but what it does is it has videos, modules on there to talk about the different products, different categories, what's covered by the insurance, what's not covered by the insurance, what to ask the insurance, all these questions, what to ask your doctor. So those are things on there because I believe that when you educate people,
Yeah.
when you start out with educating people and giving them knowledge on what they're dealing with, they can make a better sound decision because we can all sell product. Let's just be honest.
Exactly.
And so
In
we
fact, your
educate.
video subscription side is my favorite side because things have changed over the last 50 years, and I am in and out, but I never ever in my entire life saw a rotating bed. What I
Yeah.
think of is the striker frame and the
Oh, yeah. The striker heel run bed. So actually it's so interesting because like with the striker and the heel run beds in the hospital,
Uh-huh.
you have some of those the beds now, the long-term care beds that's out there. They do have that all those features, but they
Yeah.
have exactly what you need. They have the Trinidad bird, they
Yeah.
have the high low, they go very high, they go very low. They can go into chair positions. They can go. These beds are doing some things that you're like, whoa. Yeah, they're good. They're good. But
Oh,
again, a clinical assessment is needed because there's
yes.
different kind that does different things.
Yeah.
They have clinical contours in them. And with that clinical tour, do you have ones that retract back? And the retraction makes the bed go back with the body. And it's doing different things to the body. The comfort level is just unbelievable. I'll share a story with you. I had a client who brought her father in from another state and she said he had a regular bed and he was just having so many different health issues going on. So she brought him here local and put him in an assisted living and she did a demo on one of our retractor beds. And she says, "Tara, I can't believe like the difference of his everyday, his attitude, his movement. He started get feeling back in his leg and all these things because he had the proper mattress on the bed. He
Yep.
had the bed has a clinical tour inside of it. So he's more comfortable. He was resting, he was sleeping well. He could the him and the therapist, they couldn't believe it. They were like, wow, like just a bed.
Yes.
It's something that simple, and so she was like, "Wow." So you should "Yeah, I gotta have this for my dad." And so those type of things really make a difference, I am. But again, you need a clinical assessment because every bed is not for everybody.
I'm thinking of just people buying everyday mattresses or beds for their homes. There's sleep number beds, there's the purple mattress, there's so many different things,
Yes.
and you
Yes.
actually go in and test it out and figure out what's best for you. People don't take the time to do that for their own family member when they're buying a very expensive piece of equipment. And nothing this gentleman that you were talking about who the bed transformed him, I can understand that because if you're sitting on him, he was probably like a lot of us are like the princess and the pea. We get up and we have we feel hurt, we hurt and get uncomfortable in bed. So we have a pea under us. It's our back is sore or our muscles are fatigued and we don't get a good night's sleep. So when you get the right bed or the
Mhm.
right mattress for you,
Yes.
it makes a huge difference. So I can see that.
It does. The sleep surface is another thing. I tell people that as well because sometimes we say, "Oh, yeah, I can get the bed, but what about if I can just get a cheaper a mattress?" That's the problem.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
I'll tell you this, so you have some companies out there that sells the good beds, but for pricing, so then they can get the deal, they'll give the family a cheaper brand mattress. Now,
Yeah.
that's the unfortunate part because you're getting this bed and the frame is gonna do what it's gonna do, but if the comfort, that sleep surface is not appropriate for the patient, then that's
Yeah.
where you start. That's another problem. So now you're not gonna fix the problem. Now you gotta now go buy another mattress or call them and say, "Hey, my loved one is not comfortable. I'm a true believer in the sleep surface, and I tell you, it's so funny, I was telling someone this the other day. When I was younger, I used to ask my grandma, "Why do you spend so much money on your mattresses?" 'Cause I was like, "What in the world?" This was back then. I was, like, in what, junior high school, and my grandma I'm like, "Why do you spend so much money on your mattress?" And back then, she was spending thousands of dollars on a mattress, and I didn't understand. I thought it was a waste of money.
Oh,
And she would say, "Just wait till you get older and you'll understand."
yep, yep.
Now, I understand what she meant because a sleep surface is so critical. When you're young, you're like, "Ah, whatever, I can sleep on the floor. I'm good." But as you get older, even my age now, like, if I'm not sitting I'm always sitting on a seat cushion, I'm always on a back cushion, and my sleep surface has to be up on its A game because let me tell you, that rest and that sleeping in your neck and how you feel and the comfort, I get it
Yeah,
now. I
yep.
get it. I
I
get
do
it.
too. I do
Yeah,
too.
I get it,
Yeah,
and so,
yeah.
again but a clinical assessment is good for that because every mattress does something different. I had a client the other day, and they were trying to get their loved one a particular their sister was having a lot of issues been having a lot of issues, and they're in Florida. And he was like, "Oh my god, Tara, like, she's having so many problems, like, I don't know what's going on." And I said, "What is she sleeping on?" He said, "I don't know what she's sleeping on." So, we did a clinical assessment, and so I got in touch with the DON and talked to her. She sent me over the clinical information, and we did a because if originally we were thinking, "Oh, let's get her the turning low air loss." I don't know if you've seen that, but they have a turning low air loss. Yes, it turns the patient. But the patient has a spine issue going on, and she's in a lot of pain when she moves. So basically, she doesn't want anyone touching her.
Yeah.
By the time I did the clinical assessment and did all the studies and kind of look into it and all these things, with rotation, even though it's more expensive, I
Mhm.
said, "She can't have that. She can't get it." And the only way she would be able to get that is a doctor would have to sign off on it. I wouldn't recommend it, but it
Yeah.
would be something the doctor would have to do. So again, the clinical assessment was very critical because basically on our assessment, it was narrowed down to her having a low air loss, but it needed to be this a certain type of low air loss mattress, not just any kind. But the turning one wouldn't have benefited her. It would have hurt her even more because of the type of diagnoses that she has going on. So my point to that is that just getting any type of sleep surface, any type of sleep seating surface is not always ideal. There's so many cases. The cases are endless of just how critical a clinical assessment has made such a huge difference for patients as well as students because we do it school districts too for
Mhm.
students. But it is like, yeah, I can't even tell you how huge doing an assessment is with this equipment. Like,
Yeah.
all of this equipment, you should have an assessment done before you start purchasing it or understanding what you're getting.
Yes, I agree, and I know that I insist on when my clients are looking at equipment to call you.
Yeah, no.
'Cause, I don't have the knowledge that she does. I it's just that you're so much more up to date with the type of equipment, and it's changed over the years.
Yeah.
Now, I wanna talk about fraud's ripple effect. We have so much fraud out there that is impacting the industry with equipment.
Yes. It's so true, Diane. Unfortunately, the fraud is endless and they are cracking down. And
Mhm,
so it goes back to even for us, like in a survey, we usually get accredited, surveyed every 3 years
mhm.
as a supplier, DME supplier. But now they're talking about surveying us every year now, which is it's tough because when you're in survey, there's so many different things that go into it. They're there for sometimes doing a survey and you like,
You
this
definitely don't want them to have to come back the next day.
exactly. So I'm gonna have come back the next day. Not for us, thank God, but I've heard the stories. And now there's a lot of honestly, it needs to be because it costs taxpayers money when fraud happens. And that's the thing too. And that's why we really hone on, I know for us, we really hone on medical documentation. It has to be done. And unfortunately, the scams and the fraud is out there. They've had DME companies pop up. There really wasn't even real DME companies
Yep, yep,
and billing Medicare, and so the crackdown is real, and it needs to be real because we're the ones as taxpayers who get stuck with the bill when
yeah,
fraud is lurking, and so it's unfortunate though because what happens is now the patients are not getting what they need
yeah,
because you have providers now, "Hey, no, I gotta have this documentation, it needs to be this way, it's gotta be that way," or we're not gonna get paid, or if we do get paid, they can come and recoup the money up to 7 years. I take it I had an associate of mine he was doing repairs on chairs. He wasn't providing the chairs, but he was repairing. He thought he was doing a good deed. He was billing the Medicare for the chair repairs. And they
Mhm.
came back years later and recouped every dime from him.
Oh, wow.
Did. They did
Wow.
because he didn't provide the chairs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. He didn't provide the chairs. He felt he could bill for it. And of course, Medicare for us, I can't speak for any other sides, whatever, but when it comes to us and what we do, it's a trust factor.
Yeah.
So basically, Medicare is saying, CMS is saying, we're trusting that you have the proper documentation. We're
Yeah.
trusting that you've done your homework on this patient. We're trusting that you have everything properly documented in that file. So when we come in to see you, if you don't have all those, I had a survey like we was missing an emergency contact in the folder, in the file for a patient.
Oh,
And I got dinged for that, for
yeah.
not having the emergency contact in there. And I told my team, look, you better check that list. That list has better be every check mark. So now they have to check they can't submit anything. They can't do anything unless they go through every single checklist to make sure all the documentation that's required is in there, even
Yeah.
down to a back, even down to an emergency contact number. You wouldn't think that would be, but when you come in and they survey you and they go through that, because what they're doing is they're making sure that if Medicare does come out to audit you, that you're audit ready. And so I, even though I was like, "Oh my god, really? Oh, back the emergency contact, really?" But I got it. Just, "Hey, no, you need to have this because when you get audited by the real people,
Mhm.
you don't wanna be faced with just missing documentation." So that's why it's so critical to have that documentation, Diane.
Nursing homes and ALFs, I've been through their surveys, and
Mm.
it is awful, and we prepare in those settings weeks before, and we just check everything, and it's really hard, and it's sad because the turnover in the is of staff in these buildings, if you had good staff that was trained on everything, you wouldn't have to worry, but with the turnover and the use of agency nursing, because I was an agency nurse, if they don't have every single block, if you don't give 'em medicine or don't document that you gave a medicine, they get dinged. So I'd be called like, "You were in this building this day. We need you to come in to put your signature," just DC, Diane Carbo, "on that block so we know that med was given."
Yes, and you know what, Diane, you say that, it's so funny you say that because when I first started out in Scouts at 18, Diane. I'm gonna go back some now here. But I started out in skilled nursing as an activities assistant. And that's how I just fell in love with, because I've always been around seniors, especially I just was always around my grandma and stuff. And so I started out in that as an activities assistant, but I end up being in it going into administration
Mhm.
there at the same facility. And one of the things I would do, I would be responsible for the Medicare cards back then, and they had the little cards back then. I would be responsible for that, and I would be responsible for taking the state around.
Oh my lord, that's a heavy
It's,
responsibility.
and but for somebody who know, but you know what though? I loved it because I learned so much, and let me tell you, we were literally so I would take her around. I never forget this, like it was yesterday. I would take her around, and mind you, leading up to the survey, what you talked about is going come someone calling you. I was that person. I would be the one calling you saying, "Diane, I went," because I would go and check all the reports, all the
Yep,
charts. And I
yep,
would look through
yep,
the charts and I would find that you documented, but you didn't put your initial, or you
yeah,
didn't put the date. You didn't,
yeah,
or there was something missing. It was always something going on. So I would call you and say, "Hey, Diane, I need you to come in, put this initial here because we got survey states coming in." And but it was so funny because I would, and then when they would come, I would be the one to take them around, show them the different sites, and then we would sit down and they would go through the charts and look through things, and I was telling them, "Oh yeah, this is that." So it's so funny you said that because yeah, it is. They are no joke, and one of the major problems is the equipment.
uh-huh.
Equipment in the facilities is one of the major write-ups that across the board. It's crazy because a lot of people, they're doing what they're supposed to do, but a lot of them aren't specialized in medical equipment or knowing what equipment, and then you're getting equipment from suppliers who not gonna help you with compliance, and so we do that.
Yep.
I
Yep.
help with compliance. And so I have a facilities and then we'll go in, we'll consult with them, letting them know with the binders and all this stuff, like what survey is going to look for, what you
Mhm.
need to have. Your staff needs to be trained because an auditor, when they come in, they can walk up to you and say, Diane, do you know how to operate this product right here? And you don't even know how to operate it. That's the citation.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Because how can you be helping a patient if you don't know how to operate the product?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So those things are very critical. So we do compliance for facilities and train their staff and offer videos for their staff so their staff can, so of course you talk about turnover, right? So
Yep.
when they come on site, when they come on with your facility, they can
Mhm.
watch those videos about the medical equipment and how it operated and how it
Yep.
works. But
Yep.
again, in every quarter, you can have them do a refresher. That
Yep.
way they're privy to it. So if they come and you get audited, you're ready. You got all those things and locked in. And yeah, because you see it all the time. No one knows when you don't know what an elevating leg rest is and you're helping a patient inside of a facility, that's a problem.
Oh, that is a massive problem.
That's
That's
a
just a
problem.
basic thing. You know,
Yeah.
what I like about the videos that you provide is there are a lot of people that work 11 to 7 and they're expected to come in during the day on their
Mhm.
days off for staff meetings or training, and your facilities or your training is available to anybody and they can do it while they're on a shift and not
Right.
have to come in on their day off, and that makes helps retain staff
Yeah.
because you're working with them and not against them.
Yeah, yeah, and it makes such a difference too. Because when I get caregivers and I'm like, "Hey, let me show you this right here, because what you were just doing, you're gonna hurt yourself." And when I
Uh-huh.
"Oh, thank you so much, I didn't even know that." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're trying to keep your job, girl, you need to make your money. You need to be
I was at
working."
my chronic pain doc the other day, and
Uh-huh.
the staff there comes and is putting this lady in a wheelchair, and they're doing it all wrong. And I said, "Wait, here I am, bold as can be. I'm saying, excuse me, but I'm
Mhm.
a nurse. I've done rehab. Let me show you how to do a proper transfer
Oh,
so nobody gets hurt." And
yeah.
even the family said, "We didn't know that. Nobody's ever
Yeah,
trained us." And I'm like,
yeah, yeah,
"Oh, they that's awful. That's
yeah,
awful because
yeah,
our backs are our we need our backs, we need our shoulders, we need
yeah,
on our necks. Be gentle with yourself. Try to learn things the proper way
yeah.
so you're not harming yourself or the patient."
Yeah, yeah, it's so sad, and you need to work. People have to have their jobs. Even though you may get some disability or something, but ideally you want your body to be intact. And so the
Yeah.
any information and resources that we can give to help people. It's so funny as people come in, oh my God, can we take you guys home? We need you guys at our house.
I
Yeah, I'm
know.
sorry.
Trust me. I absolutely know that. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Got called, but I got some videos. Yeah, but
And
yeah.
that's the important thing that you really encourage is education of your
Yeah.
clients, of their caregivers, of the caregiving staff. That prevents downstream harm that we talk about. And I have to tell you, your app offers so many solutions. I like the articles that you've been providing. In fact,
Mhm.
I share them with my followers. There's some really good information there, and every once in a while, I come across something, I go, "I didn't know that." I didn't know that. Today, the rotating bed. I
Yeah.
never saw one, and now I'm gonna look it up when we get off here and find out
Yeah.
what it's about.
Oh my gosh, I have
Um,
to send it to you. It's amazing, and of course, it's not for everybody, but it is great. It's an awesome thing. I tell you, when you get families who get it, and then they get that transfer also with it, they are like, "Oh my god, like this is a game changer." I'm like, "Yeah, it is a game changer," but it's a lot of things out there to help people, and I think the unfortunate part is that kind of hurts me a little bit is that because families really need it, but everybody can't afford it, Diane.
and that's I
That's
know
the
it
sad
bothers
part.
me, and I've seen it my whole life. I've
Yeah.
seen it, and it's always been people on Medicaid, but now it's everybody, Medicare MA plans, Obamacare. It's all our government has screwed up our healthcare system to the point where it's everybody. If you want good healthcare, you have to privately pay for the equipment, the treatments, and the support staff.
Yeah. The thing of it is too, and a lot of people are, of course, we know we talk about this all the time of people aging at home.
Yeah.
And but if you do have family, I tell people sometimes everybody just may have to chip in. A lot of
And
families
that's
do that.
happening more and more, and I encourage it. I tell my caregivers, if your family members need to help chip in too, maybe they're not able to put in hundreds of dollars, but every little bit helps. And you have to work it out somehow, some way if you want the right equipment at the right time.
Yeah, everybody has to put in a little bit maybe and a chip in and there's ways and there's financing too. That's out there as well. So that we offer financing as well too to
Good
try
to
to
know.
help people best way they can. And then we have other tips too that I give my clients to even help them save a couple of dollars, more dollars
Ever
on
but
things.
ever, uh,
Those I do that as well with my clients, and it has really helped them with saving some dollars.
yeah.
And anything that we can put out there or try to share with families, Diane, this is a conversation that I could talk about all day long.
And we do.
We do, we
We talk
do, we
about it a
do.
lot because what I see and what makes me crazy sometimes, and it hurts my
Yeah,
heart other times.
yeah.
Tara, thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing your knowledge. It makes us better caregivers. It makes us safer caregivers. So I appreciate you. How do
Oh,
my clients find you?
we have 2 sites. We have www.cfs, that's Charlie Frank Sam, medicalequipment.com, that's the equipment side, and then for the consultations, it's www.cfs, that's Charlie Frank Sam, Solutions, DBS, that's D as in David, B as in boy, S as in Sam, and so you can find us there, and you can also go and download the app on Apple or Google on by typing in CFS Medical Supplies. So if you type that in under Apple or Google, you can download the app and just follow. You can listen to the podcast. And of course, you're a contributor to us as well. So we're always having these conversations. And I'm always sharing I love what you do too, Diane. So I just want to thank you for this space as well. I want to thank you for what you do. I'm always sharing you with people. And I'll be like, let me ask Diane when it comes to that nurse side, right? And
Yeah.
so I really love what we all been doing because we have I would say we have this ecosystem of different
We
people, Giancarlo and Linda and Richard, just a group of different people.
Yes.
Diane, everybody's just trying to help people with resources. And so when I get calls or I'm helping a family, I say, hey, because in our blog, what we try to do is when we do our episodes, we add it to the blog. There's
Yeah.
a blog created and then the link to your information.
Yeah.
So when patients and families go on there, they can actually just click the link to get to you or to whomever so that they have access right away to call or reach out to you guys. But I love what you've created here. I love it. And congratulations on your podcast being number 6 in caregivers. Hey, lady. I love
Moving
it. I
on
love
up.
it. Yes, I love it because I love your podcast. Your interviews are amazing. I get so much information from your guests and the questions you ask. It has really helped. I've listened to your podcast and recommended so many different episodes to customers and clients, and it has been awesome. It's amazing because resources are you can't look when you're taking care of your loved one and you're just trying to take care of yourself and figure it out.
Yeah.
You need to know what to ask. You need to know what to look for. And thank you for providing such an amazing podcast and
Thank you.
caregiverrelief.com and your Vital Vault too. Oh my God, I love the vault. You guys get that. I don't know if she's talked about that, but yes, my Vital Vault is amazing as well, Diane. I just wanted to say that to you.
And I want my listeners to know out there that you are the most important part of the caregiving equation. Without you, it all falls apart. So please learn to be gentle with yourself. Practice self care every day because you are worth it.